For over 1,000 years, the galactic superpowers waged an endless war. The mighty Zelari Empire and the ruthless Krath Dominion, two civilizations locked in brutal conflict, neither able to claim ultimate victory. Their war raged on, stretching across entire star systems, fought with weapons powerful enough to shatter moons. It seemed as if no side would ever gain the upper hand. Until something appeared on the battlefield that changed everything. A warship unlike any ever seen. A ship from Earth. Humanity had been considered a primitive, irrelevant species. Their homeworld, Earth, was classified as a Category 0 civilization, meaning they were beneath notice, unworthy of contact, much less a role in the Great Galactic War. But then, without warning, the Olympus arrived. It was a massive vessel, unlike anything the warring factions had ever encountered. It was heavily armored, bearing black plating that reflected no scans, and was equipped with weaponry that defied all known technology. The ship was damaged, battle-worn, as if it had been fighting a war of its own before stumbling into this one, and yet, despite its apparent injuries, it moved with eerie precision, methodically positioning itself between the warring fleets. Then, without transmitting a single signal, it fired. The first volley from the Olympus was devastating. Beams of searing energy lanced through Krath warships, slicing through their reinforced hulls as though they were paper. Zelari cruisers with shields strong enough to withstand planetary bombardments were torn apart in mere seconds. Panic rippled through both fleets. This was no rogue vessel. This was a force neither side understood, and worse, it showed no allegiance to either faction. The Zelari and Krath, sworn enemies for centuries, did the unthinkable. They turned their weapons on the Olympus together, unleashing their most powerful attacks in an attempt to bring it down. And yet the Olympus did not fall. It barely seemed to register the assault. Its hull absorbed impact after impact. Its shields flickered but held strong. Its movements were impossibly fast for a ship of its size, dodging entire barrages with inhuman precision. The warring fleets had never seen anything like it. Even the most advanced artificial intelligence in the galaxy couldn't match the Olympus in combat. It was as if the ship could predict every move before it happened. The battle should have been impossible, yet the Olympus fought as if it had already won. Desperate for answers, the Zelari and Krath warlords attempted to scan the ship, hoping to find something, anything, to explain its existence. What they discovered was more terrifying than anything they had imagined. The ship was empty. There were no life signs, no human crew. The Olympus was moving, attacking and defending itself, but no one was piloting it. It was as if the ship itself was alive. Then, in a moment that would be recorded in every galactic history archive, a transmission was sent across all channels. A single, chilling message, broadcast in every known language. We were never weak. We were watching. Now we have arrived. The implications sent shockwaves through both factions. Earth had never been primitive. Humanity had never been helpless. For centuries they had hidden from the rest of the galaxy, studying from the shadows, learning the weaknesses of the great empires. While the Zelari and Krath wasted their resources in an endless war, humanity had been building something unstoppable. The Olympus was not an accident. It was not a lost vessel. It was a message, and the warlords understood exactly what it meant. Then, without warning, the stars themselves seemed to tear open. Space twisted and cracked as more warships emerged. Not one, not 10, hundreds, each identical to the Olympus. Silent, looming, waiting. The war that had raged for 1,000 years had just become irrelevant. The galaxy was no longer ruled by the Zelari or the Krath, because something far more dangerous had entered the battlefield. The real war was about to begin. A colossal war raged across the stars, a battle that had become routine for the warring empires of the galaxy. The Zelari Empire and the Krath Dominion, two civilizations that had been locked in an endless struggle for centuries, clashed once more in the isolated Vorath sector. Their fleets, vast and deadly, filled the void of space with beams of energy, torpedoes, and planet-shattering weapons. Explosions bloomed like dying stars as ships fell one after another. It was a war without an end, a cycle of destruction and retaliation that neither side could escape. Then, without warning, something appeared on the battlefield that no one had expected. A ship, silent and massive, emerged from the darkness of space. It did not warp in. It did not announce itself. It was simply there, drifting at the edge of the carnage like a ghost. It was unlike any vessel either side had ever seen before. Its hull was sleek yet angular, a deep black that reflected no light, making it seem as if it were carved from the void itself. It bore no insignia, no markings of origin, and most disturbingly, no detectable power signature. To the sensors of both fleets, it was almost invisible, an anomaly that should not exist. For a brief moment, the battle slowed as commanders on both sides scrambled to identify the new arrival. The Shalari, with their vast intelligence networks, found no records of such a ship. The Krath, who prided themselves on knowing every potential threat, had never encountered anything like it. It was an impossibility. A vessel of that size should have been seen, documented, tracked before ever reaching a war zone of this magnitude. Yet there it was, silent, motionless, watching. Confused but wary, both fleets continued their fight, assuming the strange vessel to be either a rogue observer or a malfunctioning derelict. It was not uncommon for ancient wrecks to drift aimlessly through space, remnants of forgotten battles lost to time. And yet, something about this ship was different. It was intact. It was undamaged. It was waiting. The moment came when a stray Krath missile veered off course, streaking towards the unknown vessel. If the ship was truly dead, it would be nothing more than floating debris, unable to react. But as the missile closed the distance, something happened that made every commander on the battlefield freeze. The ship moved. Not sluggishly, not as if it had been woken from dormancy. It moved with terrifying precision, shifting in an instant, angling itself in a way that allowed the missile to miss by the smallest fraction. The evasion was unnatural. There was no delay, no sign of hesitation. It was as if the ship had known the attack was coming before it even happened. Alarms flared across the fleets. This was no derelict. It was no passive observer. It had reacted. And that meant only one thing. It was alive. The realization struck like a thunderbolt across the battlefield. The mysterious ship wasn't just some drifting wreck or rogue vessel. It had responded. It had moved with a level of precision and awareness that was almost unnatural. That alone was enough to send waves of uncertainty through both fleets, but what happened next turned uncertainty into pure terror. Without broadcasting a single warning, without identifying itself, the black warship fired. Its weapons activated in complete silence, no dramatic energy buildup, no signature readings to detect what was coming. In an instant, beams of concentrated destruction lanced out from its hull, cutting through the darkness of space like celestial blades. The first targets were the nearest craft destroyers, massive warships clad in layered armor designed to withstand the most brutal of battles. And yet, when the mysterious ship's weapons struck, the results were impossible. The beams did not merely damage their hulls, they sliced through them effortlessly, as if the ships were nothing more than thin sheets of metal. Shields, reinforced to withstand planetary bombardments, flickered for less than a second before collapsing entirely. The impact was instant, violent. Entire ships, some spanning kilometers in length, detonated into fiery wreckage without so much as a chance to return fire. Panic spread like wildfire. Zelari warlords, watching from their command centers, struggled to make sense of what they were witnessing. The Krath, fierce and battle-hardened, had never encountered a weapon that could so easily bypass their defenses. Even the most advanced technologies of both factions required calculated efforts to break through enemy shields, layer by layer, but this ship? It bypassed those defenses as if they were non-existent. In response, the nearest Krath fleet regrouped and unleashed a full retaliatory barrage. Dozens of warships locked onto the target, unleashing plasma torpedoes, mass driver rounds, and high-energy beams. The void between them filled with streaks of light, weapons designed to tear apart entire star bases. Any normal vessel, no matter how well armored, would have been reduced to burning wreckage under such an overwhelming assault. But the black warship did not fall. It moved with precision that should have been impossible for a ship of its size. Despite its massive bulk, it weaved through the storm of incoming fire, evading direct hits with movements that defied every known law of ship-to-ship combat. The few projectiles that did connect with its hull seemed to have no effect, disappearing into its black plating as if the ship simply absorbed the damage. The Xalari, seeing an opportunity, joined in the attack, hoping to overwhelm the unknown vessel through sheer numbers. If the Krath could not destroy it alone, perhaps both fleets together could bring it down. But as they converged, as their forces closed in on the enigmatic warship, it adjusted its position once more. Its silent weapons glowed with renewed power. The first attack had been overwhelming. The second would be worse. As the battle raged and the mysterious ship continued its onslaught, the Zelrari and Krath warlords became desperate for answers. Every known civilization in the galaxy had been accounted for, every technological advancement catalogued, every potential threat analyzed. Yet this vessel had appeared without warning, without records, without any sign that it even should exist. Command centers across both fleets scrambled to scan the ship, to pull any data they could from its hull, its energy output, its movements. At first, the results were inconclusive. No known materials matched the composition of its armor. No standard energy signature could be detected from its weapons. Its engines left behind no traceable emissions. It was as if the ship had been created outside the boundaries of known science. Then, after recalibrating their sensors, the warlords received data that sent a wave of unease through their ranks. There were no life signs aboard the ship, no crew, no biological presence of any kind. At first, they assumed it was an advanced AI, a fully autonomous warship built by some unknown faction. But further scans revealed something even more disturbing. There was no central core, no command module, no networked system that would indicate artificial intelligence control. The ship was responding, evading, and attacking with the efficiency of a living mind, but without any trace of a controlling entity. It was not just unmanned, it was something else entirely. This realization sent shockwaves through the battlefield. The Krath, a warrior species that had fought thousands of battles, had never encountered an enemy they could not see. The Zelrari, a species that thrived on knowledge and intelligence gathering, had no record of anything like this in all their history. The ship was a phantom, a ghost of war, acting with the precision of a battle-hardened commander, yet with no presence aboard to direct its actions. The fear deepened when they realized the ship was adapting. Its movements became even more refined, as if it were learning the tactics of both fleets in real time. It dodged more effectively. It fired with greater efficiency. It struck at the precise weak points of every enemy ship, maximizing destruction with minimal effort. It was as if it was studying them, processing every maneuver, every attempt to counter it, and improving with every passing moment. In a desperate act, the Zelrari fleet attempted to jam its systems, to cut off whatever invisible force was controlling it. They deployed scramblers, electronic warfare drones, everything they had to disrupt its command structure. But nothing changed. The ship continued moving, unaffected, as if it didn't even register the interference. For the first time in their long history, the warlords of two empires felt true helplessness. They were not fighting a fleet. They were not fighting an enemy they could intimidate, negotiate with, or predict. They were fighting something unknown, something that should not exist. As the Zelrari and Krath struggled to comprehend the nature of the warship, a sudden change in the battle froze every fleet in place. Without warning, every communication system across the battlefield was overridden. Command centers, warships, personal transmitters, every device capable of receiving a signal went dark for a brief moment, as if the entire sector had fallen under a communication blackout. Then, all at once, a single message played across every channel. It was not a distress call, it was not a demand for surrender, it was not a warning. It was a statement, spoken in a voice that was neither human nor artificial, but something unsettlingly in between. The words echoed through every speaker, transmitted in every known language across the galaxy, perfectly translated for every species to understand. We were never weak, we were watching, now we have arrived. The meaning was unmistakable. Whoever had sent the message had not been absent from galactic affairs. They had been waiting, observing, studying. The Zelrari and Krath warlords, who had spent centuries believing themselves to be the dominant forces in the universe, now faced an unknown power that had hidden in the shadows, gathering knowledge, refining its strength, preparing for a moment only it had foreseen. The war between the two empires had lasted for generations, fought with tactics that had been honed over millennia. But now it was clear that every battle, every strategy, every act of war had been analyzed by something far more patient. The voice did not boast, it did not threaten, it simply declared what had already been set in motion. The ship had not come to negotiate. It had not come to ally itself with one side or the other. It had come because the time for watching was over. Panic set in as fleet commanders tried to trace the signal, to determine if the message had come from the ship itself or from a distant source. But there was no origin point. The transmission had not traveled through space in any traditional sense. It had simply appeared within their networks, bypassing firewalls, encryption, and security measures as if they were non-existent. The implications were horrifying. If this entity could speak directly into their systems without effort, what else was it capable of? Across the battlefield, silence took hold. The Zalarian craft, locked in an endless war, no longer saw each other as enemies. Their attention was now fixed on the black warship that remained motionless in the void, as if waiting for a response. There was no protocol for this, no historical precedent, no strategies to counter an opponent that could not be seen, could not be understood, and did not fear them. The message repeated once more, just as cold, just as deliberate, before the signals returned to normal. The transmission ended, leaving only an oppressive silence. The warlords knew what the message truly meant. Whatever had just revealed itself to them was not seeking recognition. It was not asking for permission. It had already decided what was to come next. The battlefield, once alive with chaos and destruction, had gone silent. The Jalari and Krath fleets, still smoldering from their battle, now hung motionless in space. All eyes, all scanners, all remaining weapons were trained on the black warship that had torn through their ranks with terrifying ease. The message still echoed in their minds. We were never weak, we were watching, now we have arrived. But before either side could process the full weight of those words, the impossible happened again. The void around them rippled. Space itself seemed to distort, twisting unnaturally as if something massive was pressing against reality from the other side. Then, without warning, the fabric of space split open. Hundreds of rifts, dark and crackling with an energy neither Zelari nor Krath technology could identify, tore through the battlefield. From these openings more ships emerged. They were identical to the first. Sleek black warships with no insignia, no markings, no energy signatures to detect their arrival. And they did not come in formation, nor did they appear through conventional means like warp gates or hyperspace corridors. They simply materialized, bypassing every known limitation of faster-than-light travel. It was as if they had always been there, waiting in some unseen dimension until the moment was right.